science. This is real science. When we get to space, we're gonna teach a lot of science.
I'm Sharon McAuliffes. I'm class of 1974. I had a brother who was a senior who was class of 72, so he had just left and he was on the track team.
Well, I am so excited to be here. We watched Columbia go over the Houston area this morning, and that was a thrill.
Yeah, we got a lot of 74 women here, that's right. I
don't think any teacher has ever been more ready to have 2 lessons in my life. I've been preparing these since September, and I just hope everybody tunes in on day 4 now.
And I have a couple friends that transferred in from other schools other than St. Mary's, and they had a really tough time.
Now, to watch the teacher teaching from space. I'd like to introduce to you someone who's going to be in my 2nd lesson, Greg Jarvis, the payload specialist from Hughes.
It's a proud inhabitant of Baden Hall. There's a lot of Baden women here too, that's right. Woohoo! I transferred over from St. Mary's. I did my first 2 years there and transferred in the first year.
We had to get quite a few signatures and releases from our superintendent to ensure that we would be able to go if we were chosen. We also had to get a community person involved with a recommendation, somebody from our peer group involved. We had to get somebody from the administration.
And I, like Betsy, was involved in the student tutoring program, and then my junior year, I think I joined CELA, Council for International Lay Apostolate, and so I see a couple people shaking heads here, the precursor of the Center for Social Concerns, so that was a big thing that I was involved in.
Administration involved, and finally, after working on this for a few months, kind of piecing it together, and finding out why I wanted to be the first private citizen in space, and how I fostered international and national awareness in my students, getting my essays condensed to a small block on each.
I was here.
I know you don't like to go first, but I'm going to make you go first now. So Sharon, you were at St. Mary's. What drew you to want to come across the street?
So I really felt like I was at Notre Dame, at least by my sophomore year, because my sophomore year I took all of my classes at Notre Dame. You know, we had the coeducation program.
Well, my parents were very concerned about keeping us up with all of the things that were happening in the world. They wanted us to watch television and watch the news, and we would talk about these things at the dinner table. And one of the things that was intriguing to them, just like I'm sure people were intrigued with the Wright brothers' first flight and then the advancements after that, was when the first satellites were launched. I remember watching that.
All right. And my mother was a doctor and didn't think I should go to St. Mary's. It wasn't a tough enough education. My father was class.
I remember the aborted attempts. I remember seeing some of the Vanguard rockets start to go off and land on the pad instead of go up into space. And when Alan Shepard made that first suborbital flight, my parents were so excited. And
a 44 undergraduate Notre Dame, 49 law, and he said to my mother, I'm sure Notre Dame will be co-ed by the time Sharon graduates, and she'll get a Notre Dame degree.
Wow. I remember sitting there and watching it, and then watching it again at school, and it was so exciting. I mean, this was a real, it was such an impact on history that space flight was actually going to continue.
So thank my father that, I wanted to come here, and I took all as many courses as I could my sophomore year at Notre Dame.
Each of those pages, I mailed it for the deadline on the 31st of January, felt very proud of myself that I mailed it, and felt very relieved that it was done. That's quite a process.
Because I also worked for the Dean of Admissions at St. Mary's, Sister Raphaelita, if any of you remember Sister Raphaelita. Yes, and I had a sense that things were not going well as a student intern in the Dean of Admissions office.
Cameron, you're going to talk about the galley and
the lockers.
The galley, the lockers, the treadmill, where the other seats were in the airlock. And then the crew. And then the crew will come over.
And so I thought, if this doesn't work, I want to have Notre Dame grades. So I had a plan. Yeah, and I wanted to carry on the family tradition.
You could tell the merger wasn't going
well.
Yes,
I could tell it wasn't. So, yeah. So the plan worked.
Okay. And
now, where we are now, you're going to be upstairs.
I'll probably come down and help set up this camera, but
Okay.
I'll be
You'll
back
be
over here
there.
or upstairs.
So if right at the end I could get everybody over here, that would work.
Everybody.
We just have to practice.
everybody could come over if you wanted to. Judy
Yeah.
could come down from upstairs.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I think, oh, that's going to be great.
With so few women and so many guys, like
So I'm not sure, maybe some of the people in my class can remind me. I think they still brought the buses in, right? Okay, so, 1974, there's certain things. Somebody in the audience from Baden, I think, was reminding me of something so we came in the fall, and by the spring, when bookstore basketball came, I think some of us were feeling empowered by then, like, we're here, we're staying. And somebody put speakers on the top of Baden Hall and started playing Helen Reddy's I Am Woman during bookstore basketball. I mean,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Brent.
Simple question. Why you?
It's really hard to say. There were 10 people. We were such a cohesive group, enthusiastic, really enjoying teaching, and I think any one of us would have done a really good job. I don't know what put me over the top, but I'm delighted to be here.
some of you must remember that because I always remember that, and someone said that. So, right? So Trish Moore is over there saying, yeah, we did that, right. So by spring, we really felt empowered to kind of do that. There were junior transfers, not all from St. Mary's, too.
I really didn't. I was almost doing it kind of like when you play the lottery. If you don't play it, you don't win.
Sure.
And when I filled out that application, that's really how I felt. I figured there'd be at least 50,000 people across the country who would be slipping that into the mailbox around the same time.
What about when you...
And I'm walking up that stairs that used to have a lock on it because we had locked dorms, right? No other dorms on campus were locked, but we had electronic cards because you're not getting to those 300 women. And I got the electronic card in my back pocket of my jeans.
Then the possibility became very real, and I really started to think what the impact would be on my teaching career and on my family. But it was still really exciting.
Has it all...
And I'm carrying my laundry, and next thing I know, I am at the locked door at Baden, and the entire stairs is filled behind me. And they're all going, give us your card, give us your card. I'm
Get you yet?
No, I don't think so. I still can't believe that I'm going to actually be going into that shuttle. It just really doesn't seem possible. Maybe when I'm on the launch pad, it will.
We're standing there, and they're all yelling and chanting and everything. I'm thinking, okay, but I also was a secretary for Sister Karen. Everybody remember Sister Karen, our residence advisor? So I thought, oh my God.
The Earth from that perspective of that small planet, it's such a big place here, but being able to look at it from a new perspective, and I hope I can bring that wonder and that excitement back to the students.
Maybe just a little bit of fright, too?
Not yet. Maybe when I'm strapped in and those rockets are going off underneath me, there will be, but...
Lose my job if I give her my thing. Luckily, somebody from the first floor of Baden, I think it was Linda Slaughter, if anybody remembers Linda Slaughter. Yes, Linda Slaughter came in.
Space flight today really seems safe. We had a good example of that when NASA shut down the last one through the computer because one of the backup systems wasn't working.
So I always felt like I had a very protected experience, and some of my friends didn't. I came in knowing people. I was almost just like moving across the street to live in a different dorm. But there were those experiences, like they used to have the panty raids, as they said, where everybody would head over to St. Mary's, and I was talking to someone about this experience today. For those of you that lived in Baden, I was in the Baden laundry room, which when you went in the door was downstairs, and I was oblivious to the fact that this was the night that they were going over to St. Mary's our first year. And
You've been one who followed NASA efforts all along, long before?
Oh yes. I can remember watching the Vanguards as they went like this, and I remember Alan Shepard's first suborbital flight, and it was really thrilling.
I read...
opened the door and saved me. So it was a strange experience. We were here, we thought, oh, we've moved over, like all 100 of us, juniors, like big deal. And life kind of went on in some ways, I think, those first few years, as if the women really weren't here. It wasn't like, oh, here are these 100 women, so great, we're gonna change things. No, the buses still came in from girls' schools to the Circle, and the dances were held with the visiting girls from girls' schools.
And did you go to the dancers?
No.
No.
In plain talk, what does that mean?
Well, we see the space program as a science or math or technological adventure right now. I want the students to get a little bit of ownership. I want them to feel that they're part of the space age because they're the future, and their children or grandchildren are going to be pioneering that. So I really hope to bring an ordinary person's perspective to this.
No. No.
So that these young
right.
ladies are brought in,
That's
and
right.
you do your own thing.
I did, and
Okay.
and I think most of the women that are my class, I see a lot of them sitting out, most of the women in my class, I think, if they had come from St. Mary's, they probably already had their network of friends already. And
Have you heard from some of your students yet?
Yes, I have. They've been dropping by the house. They've been sending me cards. They've been calling. That's been super.
Making speeches on NASA's behalf
That's going
all
to
along?
come. Certainly will, but I'm also delighted that the teaching profession and students and the whole country is really going to benefit from this. We hopefully are going to know an awful lot more about what life is like aboard the shuttle.
Yeah.
And I was in sociology, and Notre Dame did not really have a strong sociology department, so there were a lot of Notre Dame guys that had come over to St. Mary's sophomore year to take sociology classes. And luckily, a whole group of them lived in Fisher Hall. So I used to play cards with a bunch of guys from Fisher Hall so it was, you know, it was, I mean, how could you have a normal sort of male-female relationship when you got 80-something in the class of 1974? So most of us, I think, just continued on with the friendships and relationships that we had formed our first couple of years. And then sort of thought, God, we're here, like, why aren't things changing really quickly? But, you know, there was a handful of us.
So Augie described
Yes,
Of
right
86,
now.
and we're hoping that'll be met. What are you most concerned about between now and then?
Well, probably just getting my life in order. I do have a family in Concord, New Hampshire, and I have to get them set. I also want to make sure my replacement in school is going to be comfortable for next year. One of the things that has been really surprising is all of the publicity, and I was saying to my husband the other night, it's almost like I'm reading about somebody else, you know?
Well, it's a dream come true for you.
Oh, it certainly is.
as a bit of a bait and switch. So now you find out you're at this campus and there's women here, but not very many. Do you remember the buses of young ladies coming in? What was the...
So slippery. I should have held on tighter.
When we get in space, day 4 will teach you so much science. Jarvis will be dropping payloads. So many loads. I'll probably do more science.